Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're diving into another tier list. This one I like to do, going to be focusing on the jungle world specifically. Now I do have Sylveon on this list, and I do have some other characters that you wouldn't normally expect to see in jungle, but we're going to talk about why I'm going to rank them. So first and foremost, I'm going to get Sylveon out of the way because this is just a straight raw prediction until we see something. I'm going to put Sylveon at A tier, right? Who knows? Maybe Sylveon will be a nuts jungler. She is an attacker. She looks like someone that could benefit from getting her ultimate incredibly early. And while this character might not be a good jungler, they may not be a very good laner either. So who knows? Maybe this will be like the optimal role for the character. I don't really know, but that's how some attackers in the game work anyways. So yeah, we'll go there. All right, as for Mamoswine, I do have a pretty fun Mamoswine build that I like to run. I don't think it's incredibly strong or anything. There's like a damage build that I've been running. I put him on in kind of like an all-rounder like scenario, and I'm going to throw him at like a comfortable B tier probably. S tier is going to be like the best junglers in the game. A tier is like you're reliable to pick those junglers. B tier is like they're good, you can win games with them. And then like C and D tier, like you probably don't want to pick them and like completely useless to pick. Probably, which I don't even know if I'll have many in D tier since I don't have like a ton of supports on the list or anything like that, but I did pull some of the Pokemon out. So yeah, B tier, we're gonna put Mamoswine jungle. I think Mamoswine's kind of just like high B, low A tier anyways, maybe just comfortably B tier. Like I said, I think his jungle's okay. I think if you're doing like a double tank setup and you want to do like a damage build, that's how I kind of run it in jungle, and even though it's just mostly for fun, still pretty cool. Talonflame. I think I'm going to actually move Talonflame to S tier when it comes to jungle. Now, I do think that I think that this character is like high A, S tier anyways. Like, I do think that that's just like where the character is. But as far as jungle goes, this character is incredibly strong for jungling, and it's got great clear, great execute potential with Fly or Brave Bird, really, no matter what ability set you're using. It's just a strong character, has incredible damage, brings a lot to a team, and is really, really good for that. All right, Slowbro. Slowbro jungle. I want to put it at B tier, but it's really like a high C tier. Now, you might be thinking, why are you putting Slowbro on the list at all? This character is actually really good. I think that the people don't really give this character much credit, and while, especially if you're not playing in like a team setting, you're not really going to be Slowbro jungling. I have played some like 5-man groups where I've done Slowbro jungle, and it was like a cool way to get Slowbro into the team without having to have like the early lane issues of Slowbro, because he's kind of bad in early lane. He's okay in early lane, but it's an interesting way to have Slowbro on the team. I also like, again, it's kind of like this second tank thing you're going to see me do. You're not really going to do tanky tanks in jungle because that just doesn't really make sense. You know, they don't need the experience. Anytime I'm taking a tank or a defender into the jungle, it tends to be like a damage build. So this is like damage Mamoswine. This is like damage Slowbro. I think that it's really interesting. And honestly, a part of me just wants to put them on the same tier, and I may shift that around here in a second. But I'm just kind of going through it thought by thought. Yeah, it's really, really decent. Actually, I don't know. I actually don't even think I want to put it C tier. I would rather like stack my B tier with decent things that you're most likely not going to do, and have that kind of be the structure for the tier list. Same thing with Mr. Mime. Like it's incredibly decent. It's surprisingly better than what you would expect as a jungler. Probably not, actually. Mr. Mime is really strong. He can solo lane, he can be tanky, he can do damage. Mr. Mime is really, really cool. And I think that he brings a lot to a team, has a great ultimate, has a handful of different builds. You can really item build Mr. Mime in a lot of different ways, has solid jungle clear, and brings a lot to a team. So same thing. B tier is like you may not play this, but it's actually pretty good. And who knows, maybe I'll move, like I said, maybe I'll move these down to C tier as I get a little bit further in, but we'll see. Lucario jungle. This is actually ironic because Lucario jungle is like an A tier jungler. It's just that same thing. Like there's just no reason to put him in jungle, but I'm still going to represent him properly in terms of how the character plays. Because let's say hypothetically you really want like a Ninetales and a Cram on your team or something like that. That's just the first example I could think of. And you want a Lucario on the team. Well, that's like the only way to do it, probably. Unless you lane those two together. I don't know. You would have to give up a role to do that and not have them take up a jungle spot between those three characters. So that's like, there is some kind of value to Lucario jungle. I don't think he's like obviously the best jungler, but he's an S tier character, so which makes me drop him to like A tier for jungling. I feel like it just makes sense, right? Like it's not really something you're gonna do probably, but you can. First of all, if you're in solo queue and you want to play Lucario jungle, it's fine. You're most likely not going to do that though, but you can, and he's a great character, and there's nothing wrong with it. Greninja. I think Greninja is like a solid B tier jungler now. He got edged out a little bit by Cinderace, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But he's solid. Like you can get into jungle just fine. Honestly, it might even just be A tier. Actually, yeah, we're gonna throw him in A tier. I don't know what I'm thinking comparing him to these other junglers. It makes no sense. He's solid A tier now. There's really nothing wrong with him. Water Shuriken and Surf builds, they're both good. Really, really reliable. As for Gengar, I'm probably, as crazy as it sounds, gonna maybe leave Gengar here. I just don't think this character's good at all. If you can get incredibly fed, you can do good things with it, but it's, I don't know, not that good. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'm already seeing some things that I want to shift around, so we're gonna do that, and I don't mind doing it in real time because I think it makes the most sense. These things are good, but you're probably not going to play it in jungle. That's what C tier is going to be, whereas I want to separate A and B tier. Otherwise, I'm going to have a really stacked A tier, and that just doesn't feel good. So I'm going to shift around the focus a little bit. So good things that you could run in jungle, but you're probably not going to. And the reason why they're on the list in general. As for D tier is like, I really wouldn't recommend running it probably at all. Is probably the focus. All right, Gardevoir. Honestly, I don't think Gardevoir is as bad as people think she is either. It's her early game, and that's why she's on a jungle list at all, but I would much rather have a Gardevoir on my team than a Gengar, and that's just kind of like where things are at right now. And honestly, the same thing goes for Garchomp. I know that Garchomp, Gardevoir, and Gengar... Ooh, my video's done. I know that Garchomp, Gardevoir, and Gengar kind of get thrown into this like super low tier right now, and I don't terribly disagree with that, but I think that Gengar's the worst, and so for my tier list, I'm starting to split them up a little bit. Crustal... Let's find Crustal. It's the same thing. Like you can jungle him. There's not really much of a reason to. I think most tanks can kind of fall in this position. Like realistically, you can jungle him. He doesn't really need it though, but you technically could. So solid character though. Definitely someone that could jungle if you really wanted some kind of a second tank team, like double tank team, and you didn't know if you wanted to take up a lane with it or something like that. It's possible. It's possible to make a team comp for that. Cinderace, I think, is an S tier jungler. I think Cinderace is incredibly strong. Is the new Greninja of last patch. Is the old Cinderace. I mean, listen, it's Cinderace and Greninja seem like they're always going to be strong. It's just going to be different iterations of strength. And Cinderace is currently sitting in that S tier position. As for Blastoise, I think Blastoise jungle is actually still better than most of these other tank junglers. Blastoise is incredibly strong. He still has his Rapid Spin build if you want to use that. Hydro Pump Surf build is incredibly strong. Does great damage. Has an insanely strong ultimate. The character is better than most of these characters down here, these Pokemon in C tier. So I think as far as Blastoise goes, he's not really an A tier jungler because you don't really have a reason to run him in jungle a lot of the time. But if you did, same thing. If you did want to run like a second tank setup or have a tank in the jungle, Blastoise would probably be a pretty solid pick for it. All right, go to Absol. I think Absol is, oh gosh, this is a tough one because I want to put Absol in A tier. Because Absol, I can't put him A tier. I think Absol has to be B tier, and there's a reason why. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Absol's a really consistent, strong jungler. Fits in the meta very, very well. Or not the meta. Fits in the jungle role very, very well. Can do a lot of damage. Can snowball a game. But still struggles with some of the same issues that Absol has. Like, you get to endgame, and it's really hard to do well. You can get a kill. It feels like when I hit endgame now, I'm looking for, like, maybe 1 or 2 kills or, like, a Zapdos steal with my ultimate. But Absol has great early to mid game potential. It was just early potential. Now it's much, much better. Absol feels pretty good right now. I'd say mostly balanced, but there's obviously going to be some better picks. But Absol feels really, really good right now. Charizard. I do think that Charizard is pretty solid. I don't know. A part of me, this is a really hard one for me because I want to put him like here, like low A tier. And maybe that's a more appropriate thing to do because I do think that Charizard has some really strong application. Definitely scales into endgame better than like someone's like Absol, and there's more of a reason to pick Charizard jungle than someone like Blastoise. So a part of me really wants to put Charizard in A tier. I think I'm going to do it. It's a bit of a stretch on this one. There's always another all-rounder that I tend to put in A tier because of their jungle potential. And I'm gonna flex this one up a little bit, and we're gonna see how I feel about that. As for Venusaur jungle, it's S tier because Venusaur is S tier. Even if you're not necessarily running Venusaur in jungle, the character is S tier. And if you do want to get your Venusaur more fed, then Venusaur S tier. All right, so the Zeraora pick going to A tier. This is an important one because this is what holds Absol down to B tier. I think that Zeraora is insanely strong and could almost be S tier. Like, I think that the character is kind of S tier, but it requires a team comp for it. You have to have a reason to want to run Zeraora, whether that's jungle or lane. You still just have to have a reason for it. So the character is like borderline high A tier, low S tier. So I think for the jungle meta, it's the same thing. I actually do think that Zeraora and Talonflame are incredibly strong junglers. Talonflame has taken a really strong position in the meta, and Zeraora is just incredibly reliable, which is why Absol had to sit on B tier, because otherwise I would have had to have put Zeraora up here. So these, again, like S tier is like incredibly strong junglers, like ridiculously strong, and or just ridiculously strong characters. A tier is anticipated Sylveon with an incredibly strong character with just really reliable picks. B tier is like definitely could play them for sure. C tier is like would get value, most likely not going to play them. D tier is like don't do it. Don't do it. All right, so let's move into Snorlax. Now Snorlax is another one of these like off meta, like bruiser all-rounder tank builds. I almost want to put it here because I actually think that Flailon Snorlax is pretty decent as like an all-rounder build. Not gonna lie, like maybe even better than some of the other tanks. But it doesn't really matter where I put it. You're most likely not going to play it, so like this is comfortable to me. I really think that like the structure of this is I'm really spreading them out because I've got 5 whole tiers here. But you can kind of tell like a lot of these picks you're probably not going to pick. And even though like Flailon Snorlax is better than, I think that Flailon Snorlax is like better than Garchomp. It's weird. I actually think that like because I have Garchomp, I might need to pull Garchomp down actually, because I either need to pull some of these tanks and like Mr. Mime up, which I don't think is the appropriate thing to do. No, I think I actually have to pull Garchomp down, which kind of sucks because I really feel bad for the character, and he doesn't feel that bad, but he does at the same time. It's weird. It's really unfortunate for Garchomp. I really feel for the character because he's one of my favorites to play. As for my final pick, Machamp, I think Machamp is a solid A tier. I really feel weird looking at the B tier in its current state, but it's kind of like where it's at to me, and maybe I should move Garchomp and Gengar over, I don't know. But these two characters just feel like you can almost like not play them right now. It sucks. Like, it's really weird to put a bunch of tanks above Garchomp, but like I'm not gonna lie, he's just struggling so hard in the meta, and I know people won't agree with that per se, but it's just kind of what I'm feeling with it right now. And even Gardevoir might need to come down here to this side. The bottom side of the list is really weird when it comes to the jungle meta, because I think that, oh gosh, the Garchomp pick is just so hard for me. Gengar, I really don't think should be being played right now. Garchomp is struggling really hard, but can do well. You know, I don't know. This is such a hard one. I want to just put him right here, but I don't know. I'm going to leave him in C tier. It is what it is. The reality with it is that like I actually just think that there are some of these like off tank builds that you can run that are better than Garchomp. I actually think that running like Flailon Snorlax and like off tanks Slowbro, Mime, I actually think a lot of these things are better than Garchomp. But Garchomp is actually intended for the role. He is an all-rounder. He brings a lot of value in the end game, or can bring a lot of value. I know my webcam's covering it up, but you can tell what I'm doing here. And this is what I'm kind of thinking. Now, the Machamp pick and the Charizard pick up to A tier, that might be a little aggressive. Maybe they're much more suited for B tier, because I do think that some of these other picks are a little bit better. Man, this has been a really tough one for me. I'm not gonna lie. I don't usually feel like I'm this inconclusive when I do tier lists, but maybe this is just much more appropriate since I've kind of spread out the list a little more than I feel like I usually do. And yeah, it's making it a little bit difficult, but I feel like I'm comfortable here. Let's take a look at it really quickly. I know this is kind of, let's see how long I've been recording for. Oh gosh, this one's going a little bit long. Let's take a look at it. incredibly strong junglers. I'm going to run through the thought process. Incredibly strong junglers can be picked any game. It will bring a lot of value. Sylveon prediction, I'm just assuming she's going to be a decent jungler. With Lucario sitting in A tier just because he's Lucario. And Greninja, incredibly solid jungler. With Zeraora, incredibly solid jungler. I feel like the A tier feels solid. B tier are like characters you can pick. You will definitely get wins with them, but you're not really going to pick them or see them in high level play. Per se, like high level competitive play. They're very good though. Like you can definitely win games with these picks. This feels good. Yeah, this kind of structure is starting to feel good to me. Machamp, Charizard, the second best all-rounders, kind of tied to me. They just do slightly different things. Charizard got quite a bit of love. And then Absol, like the third best speedster. He can't really hold a flame to Zeraora or Talonflame, and that's why he's sitting in B tier. As for like a rapid spin or even just a tanky kind of character, like if you want to do a second tank in the jungle, Blastoise is probably the obvious choice. But let's move into C tier. These are characters that can jungle. You're probably not going to jungle them. And as for any of the tanks in here, it's basically off tanking. Like you're basically off tanking with like a damage build. Like I would run damage Mamoswine, damage Slowbro, Flailon, damage Snorlax, or just Crustal's kind of always damage, to be honest. And then throw them in the jungle if you really wanted to. This is like, don't really do it most likely. Like this whole tier right here is like you shouldn't really do this, but you could, and they're not terrible junglers. It's not like you're not going to bring value to the team. As for like Mime, Gardevoir, and Garchomp, they're just all kind of like, Mime is just like, he's on the list just because he can jungle and he's good, but you probably shouldn't pick him. That's honestly why he's on the list. He could teeter-totter B and C tier because I think he's better character than most of these other characters in this whole list in terms of jungle. And Gardevoir, she just struggles to get where she needs to be, which is why she's low on the tier list, but still there. And Garchomp, he's just struggling in the meta as a whole. Like, I actually think he's just completely struggling in the meta. As for Gengar, this character just feels useless. I'm sorry. I don't know why I feel that way. I mean, I do. It just feels like he doesn't do enough damage and doesn't have enough mobility to even be a character. But this is kind of my current jungle tier list that I'm thinking. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, obviously, I think that Lucario could probably be B tier too, just because there's not really a reason to pick him. But as far as actually picking a jungler, like, Lucario is insane to have on a team, so you can't really go wrong there. This feels comfortable to me. B tier is kind of the standout, the one that just feels like you can actually, like, B tier up, you're solid when you're picking jungle, to be completely honest. Anything lower than that, you probably shouldn't do it. And any picks I didn't throw on here, Pikachu, Wigglytuff, Cramorant, Ninetales, Eldegoss, like you don't need to jungle them, like, ever. There's not really a reason to jungle those. Blissey, yeah, you're not going to jungle those ever. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. I should have moved my webcam down, but yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Let me know your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious what y'all think about the current state of my jungle tier list. I mean, like I said, if you're going B tier up, you can't really go wrong. A tier up, for sure, you can't go wrong when it comes to jungle. And then the rest of this stuff, like C tier down, is like mostly memes, kind of. It's kind of just for fun. So, friends, if you're new to the channel, drop a like and subscribe. I would definitely love to have you around. Join the Discord in the link in the description. But as always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.